Asking for your help right now, whether you are a pro player in OWCS, whether you're a Face It player, whether you're just a viewer or a content creator, anything related in the OWCS community. Right now, I'm just asking for help and engagement on this because I believe that the Tier 2 system in Overwatch is failing. So, just a little bit of background on myself. I've been competing in OWCS for about 2 years, and after playing and watching OWCS, Face It Masters, the promotion relegation system, and other regions, I feel like there's just a lot of flaws in the system that make it feel like Tier 2 talent can't develop properly as it has before. Alongside Tier 2 talent, there are a lot of general issues with the OWCS and Face It system and tournament structure that I believe should be changed or at least addressed at the minimum. So, to preface this document, I'm just referring to Tier 2 players as Face and Masters playoff players and promotion relegation teams. So, top 8 Face and Masters, bottom 2 OWCS. So, to give a little background on myself, prior to Face It League and OWCS tournaments, I really didn't have that much background as a competitor. You can see prior to Stage 3, I really didn't have any notable placements or tournaments or anything. So, Stage 3 was really my first tournament in 2024, and it didn't stop me from climbing the Path to Pro ladder and being considered a really skilled player. Except I believe there are a lot of differences now compared to the tournament structure that I kind of came up into. And a lot of players nowadays, I feel, don't have the same opportunities that I used to when I was, a tier 2, tier 3 player back in 2024. So, like I was saying, my first real notable tournament where I got top 16 was NA Stage 3 2024. On Team Z, you can see I came in 10th in the Swiss, so I came in at the 13th seed in this top 16 tournament. But I still ended up, making it into the group stage, playing against top teams in NA, and getting my match streamed on the main broadcast. Um, I was able to play against top teams during this time and play in the main broadcast as a top 13 seed in the region. And around this time as well, there was three other tournaments that all took place. So you had Face It Masters Season 2, Face It Masters Season 3, and OWCS Stage 4 2024. Same format as Stage 3 where, top 16 seed. I actually got the same seed again. And then I ended up, still playing against tough teams and being on the main broadcast. So the point of me talking about these tournaments that I played in is by only being top 16 in an A, I was able to get so much exposure and experience as a player alongside top teams playing in secondary tournaments like Face It Master Season 2 and 3. These weren't, standard. They wasn't connected to OWCS at all. It was just a secondary tournament. And now in the current day, like you take Season 8 NA Masters, for example, and the system just works way differently, and players are not exposed to or given the same opportunities that players used to in 2024. Um, you can see there's not really any top tier 1 teams playing in Face It Masters, and this is their only source of competition. There's no other main tournament alongside. So when you take Face It Masters Season 8, for example, top 8 in Face It Masters is practically top 14 in an A because you have 6 teams in OWCS, and then it's directly below OWCS, and you have 8 teams in the playoffs. So it's technically top 14, except, major differences now is if you're a top 8 Face It, that's, 7th NA to 14th NA, you don't have the same opportunities that previous players in that range used to before. You don't get to play against top 6 teams in NA consistently. Back in Season 2, Season 3, Stage 4 OWCS 2024, you're playing against top teams every single month, back to back to back, getting a lot of experience and exposure as a player, and you're able to grow from that. But nowadays, even if you get top 7 in an A, you don't even get to play against anything other than 5th, 6th OWCS after a grinding for 3 to 4 months. So, going into my next topic of talking about the promotion relegation system, I think that this system is heavily hindering the growth of players. And I mentioned this at the end of 2025 after Stage 3 concluded, but I didn't really have the right words to express how I felt about it. But basically, these Face It Masters teams have to compete for 3 to 4 months straight with regular season games, playoffs, and then they're immediately thrown into a promotion relegation match where they're only playing against 5th and 6th OWCS, and that's it. There's no other way for a player to get into OWCS unless you're on an existing team or you get picked up to get into OWCS besides the promotion relegation matches. And so back in 2024, you were able to play against top 6 teams in the region and get insane experience every single month through Switch stages, group stages, and Face It seasons. And now, Tier 2 players are only exposed to 2 teams every 3 to 4 months on the upper echelon of the region. And so if you take current day OWCS like stars or recognizable players such as Zira, Chronic, Ryan, PGE, all of these DPS players were playing in a OWCS infrastructure where they're constantly being exposed to better teams, higher level talent, and they're able to grow from it. And you can see now, all 4 of these players are, you know, heavily considered to be some of the best in their role in the region. And the system previously gave players the opportunity to play versus better players, improve, and be exposed to viewers. But nowadays, that's just not the case. So when players get these big underdog wins, they can actually grow into a professional player. So, even a player as myself, I just briefly talked about my background as a player and how I didn't really play that much prior to OWCS and Face It. And even still, I'm able to get exposed to these higher level teams with, very skilled players. And I'm able to, play good on match day and get a big win that helps my career. I just don't feel like that's possible for current day players, given the system. Like you take season 8 Face It Masters, and players just don't get the same opportunity. I would say tier 3 players get the same opportunity nowadays, um, given that there's more spots in Face It Masters, and you get, as a tier 3 player, you get exposed to a lot of tier 2 talent. But the main problem and concern that I have is that the tier 2 system is not able to develop. The tier 3 system, I think, is working better than ever with the Face It Expert, Advanced, Open systems, being really easy to get into. But yeah, I'm more so concerned about this tier 2 environment. I feel like players are yeah, they're kind of gatekept and bottlenecked here at the top of tier 2, and they can't really improve because they're never being exposed to other players. And I think it's very unfortunate because there's a lot of room for growth in players in Face It Masters. And even just talking about relegation, current matches of relegation are no longer streamed on the official broadcast. The Stage 1 relegation matches were streamed through Face It by Bullskunk. And shout out to Bullskunk. Like I was saying, he's been streaming my matches since I started playing in Face It. But that's just not the exposure that players need to be able to grow into a professional player and get noticed by tier 1 teams and actually building their own platform. Players need that main stage OWCS broadcast that they were given before. You look back at 2025 promotion relegation, and you had teams playing against each other in promotion relegation, and this is technically ninth slash 10th place NA and 7th slash 8th place NA, and this match is on the official broadcast. But you take nowadays relegation, this is technically number 7 in A, number 6 or 5 in A. These 2 teams would have been OWCS a year ago, and now they can't even get on the main broadcast and be exposed to the public. And I think that's very unfortunate because it's such an easy fix, and players previously had that type of exposure that they just don't now. And then going into another issue that I think is really important to bring up is there have been a lot of scheduling issues and tournament structure issues this year, especially in the tier 2 environment. Um, so to close out the promotion relegation segment, Kensugi and Dildux had to play through the entire Face It Season 8 Masters playoffs and then immediately had a promotion relegation match the next day against OWCS players. Kintsugi even ended up playing 8 days of official matches in a row. You can see they started playing on May 20th, and then their last match was on May 27th. Every single day they had a match through the lower bracket of the Face It playoffs, and then also going into promotion relegation, they had 3 matches against OWCS teams. And you're just giving them no time to prepare and no time to rest after already grinding for 3 to 4 months straight through Face It Masters Season 8, and then they just don't get the same opportunity and readiness that players have had before. A similar issue happened during the 2026 Open qualifiers, where matches were being played at, 1 a.m., starting at midnight, starting at 10 p.m., and then going until 2 a.m. And that's just not a healthy ecosystem for players, especially considering this qualification match is some players' only chance of playing in an OWCS for the next 4 months, maybe even 8 months, with stage two promotion relegation being so far away from this point on. And I think it's just such an easy fix. You look back at the 2025 Open qualifiers, and the latest you had matches going on was 10 p.m. Last matches starting or ending around 10 p.m. And you could just have matches start earlier in the day or a day before if you have a lot of matches. And I find it really upsetting that players, especially newer players, who obviously have not really been exposed to playing at this high of a level, are just put at a disadvantage or an uneasy setting where they are just playing matches super late. And it's also just such an easy fix just to have matches played a little bit earlier in the day. Another topic that I feel like is mentioned almost never in the current OWCS days is that there is no open qualifiers between stages or Face It Masters seasons. And the only way to retain a spot going into the next tournament is to retain three of your players from the last team. I think this heavily limits player growth within both tiers, as you cannot just make a new Face It Masters team during the offseason and you can't make a new OWCS team. It's very hard for players to just join other teams because it affects a lot more than them now. Say you have a team of 5 players and one substitute. If 4 of the players leave on that team, the last 2 players cannot play in the next tournament because they don't have 3 of the same players that they did, and they have to forfeit the spot, and then they have to join another team, or they can't really play. If you wanted to make a new team during the off season, you would have to play an entire season in Face It Expert, which takes about 3 to 4 months. Then, if you get a certain placement towards the top, you can get into Face It Masters. And then, if you play another 3 to 4 months, then you can maybe get into promotion relegation unless you're playing during stage 3 NA. There's no promotion relegation after because there's only 3 tournaments. And that's just very, very crude to the players, not being able to have an open qualifier every single stage and having to retain 3 players. It makes it very hard for players to grow freely, and I think it just really, really hinders the growth in tier two because this also causes issues with other teams where you have a back and forth of players trying to leave the team. Okay, if some players are leaving, that's okay, but what are the rest of the players supposed to do if they don't have enough players to retain the spot? And this is where I think an open qualifier system would come into play and should be in play for the Face and Masters and OWCS off season going into the next season. So if you look at OWCS Korea, I think they have done very well with the way that they grow tier 2 talent and the way players are easily able to create new teams. So if you go to stage 1 2025, you can already see that first things first, there's 9 total teams in the standard highest tier tournament, and for the first stage, 4 teams were able to come from the open qualifiers. And then if you go into stage 2, you can also see that they have their own promotion relegation system, except they have a promotion relegation system with 8 teams, and 6 of them can come from open qualifiers. If you were to compare that to an A, that would be 8 teams from Face It Masters. You basically imagine your Face It Masters playoffs, that's your qualifier into getting into OWCS. So I don't really understand why an A and a U, of course, but this is mainly just about an A. I don't really understand why NA doesn't have a system like this. You can see lots of players are able to grow from an environment like this. You can see Attack, and this is 2025 again. You can see Attack came from an open qualifier team. Kivis came from an open qualifier team. Um, and Spint came from promotion relegation, an 8th place team. And now all three of these players are on partner teams in the current day and age. And even if I go back to stage one, you can recognize a lot of players from the open qualifiers. You can see Sonjin, Vigilante, Aid, Milgaru, Lee Sumin, Maka, and all of these players are having very successful careers now after coming from an open qualifier team. And I think that just goes to show the benefit of why NA should have an open qualifier team. They should have more spots in the main stage OWCS. And it would just be so much healthier and easier for players to make new rosters, qualify into the main stage without having to retain a spot or find a team to join. And it'll just be a healthier system. So before I wrap up what I'm talking about here, I just wanted to give a little bit of my inside thoughts from things that I've heard. So right now during the Season 9 Face It Masters and OWCS Stage 2 off-season, after talking to a lot of players at the top of Face It Masters, a lot of them just feel really unmotivated to keep competing in this current system, and they feel like the system is extremely unrewarding to put in so much work for 3 months straight just to maybe have a chance in a system that is designed for them to lose. It's currently designed for players to not make it out of Face It Masters with this how, for example, the scheduling works. Um, and on top of that, having to retain three players makes it extremely difficult in a tier two environment to even make a new team or find what's right for you as a player. And if too many players leave a core of a team, the spot can get lost, and then you're left with some players being completely teamless, and their only option is to try to join another team, which ends up creating drama and forcing players to either substitute or get kicked off the team. And I think it's really important for even facing Masters just to have a qualifier at the end of the season so that way players can make a new team and still compete the way they want to. So, with all this being said, if you don't like me, if you think some of my points are convoluted or confusing to follow, there are four main points that I'm trying to get across that as a player in the system, and I've seen the top of OWCS and I've seen middle of Faceit Masters and top of Faceit Masters, I feel like there's some things that need to be changed in order for the tier 2 scene to function and develop new talent as it has before. The first thing I believe that needs to be changed is that tier 2 teams need to be exposed to tier 1 teams way more often than they currently are. Instead of having one or two matches versus 5th, 6th OWCS and 1 2 face it, you could increase the slots in the main stage back to 8 or even 9 like in Korea. This allows players just to have more exposure to higher level talent and be able to grow themselves. A second point is that the Tier 2 scene needs more official broadcasts to allow players to have more exposure to the viewers and be able to build their brand as a competitor. Outside of Bullskunk, who has been practically carrying the Tier 2 environment with broadcasts and streaming, trying to stream 16 different teams and Face It Masters throughout the entire regular season and the playoffs. Besides that, there's practically no way for Tier 2 players through Face It to be noticed by a Tier 1 team or even just the viewers. So simple solutions like this are the promotion relegation matches can just be streamed on the main broadcast like they were in 2025, or even having, OWCS casters take over the Face It tournament and give more exposure to those players. The third point is that I believe the promotion relegation system needs to be completely overhauled. I believe that it shouldn't be completely locked to Face It Masters versus OWCS. I believe there should be at least an open qualifier into the promotion relegation for teams to create new rosters and give players an equal opportunity to play in the main tournament more than just once a year. Like I was saying before, having to retain three spots, it just ends up making things a bit convoluted for players to grow in the tier 2 environment. The fourth point that I bring up is just have consistent scheduling and smoother tournament structure. Do not make these Face It Masters promotion teams have to play 8 days of official matches in a row and make the open qualifiers to get into stage one have matches that are earlier than 1 and 2 a.m. and midnight. I'm sure people are used to the 10 p.m. Swiss stages, but again, that's Swiss, that's shorter matches, that's, you know, uh, matches that aren't too important, especially if as long as you're in the top 16 of Swiss Echelon. But these are all, I feel, easy solutions for the tier 2 scene to just develop as it has before. And as a player, I feel like it's really important for this to be talked about. And I'm really hoping that this can get, Blizzard or Face attention.